kind of what I gleaned from watching a lot of high-level wrestling the last year. 2-on-1 stuff is really prevalent in international wrestling, a lot of the world championships. You see all those guys from these European countries, right? Russia, Ukraine, Georgians, Azerbaijanians, they're all utilizing those 2-on-1s and Russian ties really well. And then that elbow pull stuff, again, the high-level college guys hitting it all day. You watch Penn State, Ohio State, Michigan, Arizona State, those guys are really using those elbows well, keeping people guessing, moving laterally, and you can build off it, right? Understanding that we can wrestle through positions. Just because they defend your first attack doesn't mean that you're not able to score. You're still the offensive wrestler, they're still on their heels. You can always move through positions, you can find new ways to score. They're maybe a little more creative. They aren't so cut and dry and kind of, I call them like canned responses, like canned ways to set things up in attack. Then those things on top, again, that's just anecdotally speaking, they worked really well for me in high school. I got really effective with them, so I liked it a lot. Somebody's always asked, how many of you guys keep a technique notebook? Something, right? 1, 2, 3, okay? Super important. And if you go to any U.S. national team camp, men, women, whatever, everyone's writing stuff down constantly. Talking Jordan Burroughs, Kyle Dake, David Taylor, Sarah Hildebrand. They're writing down notes constantly, all through practice, they're going over their notes. It's important for a couple of reasons. One, even right here, I just threw a lot of information at you, right? I don't care if you're the smartest person in the world, retaining all of that by memory the first time out is nearly impossible. If you put pencil to paper, you're more likely to retain it. Just like studying, right? When you take notes in class, you're doing it to help yourself remember. Also, you can reference it later, right? Let's say you're down the road in the middle of your season and you're realizing you're having a really hard time scoring off of a 2-on-1. You can think back to this clinic and go, man, I know he went over that, how can I score? If you can reference those notes and pull it out in whatever shorthand makes sense to you, you can now go back and be able to kind of effectively use some of those things that we talked about. Again, putting pen to paper helps you retain it, reference it later. And then finally, any of you guys have any coaching aspirations? Maybe some of you guys want to be a coach in the future, maybe you help out with the kids club right now. It's a great resource to have as a coach. When I was coaching in college, again, I was competing and training all over the world. And if I had a kid come to me and be like, hey, can you work out my front headlock? I had a terrible front headlock. I don't think I squatted front headlock once in my entire career. So I still need to be able to help that kid. And I was like, I don't know personally, I can't tell you. But I remember I went to this camp in China. We did this great front headlock series. Give me a second. I went through my notes. Everything was dated. I knew I was there in December of 2018. I was like, here's all of my notes. And I was able to work through those positions because I had written it down, because I had put pen to paper. And so that's a very valuable resource for me as a coach as well. I mean, I couldn't tell you how many composition notebooks I have. Well, they were sitting next to my nightside table. Right now they're packed in a box somewhere in a storage unit because I just moved like 2 weeks ago. But I'll point them out soon for sure. But it's just so valuable. So I strongly recommend it. Again, that's what people at the highest level are doing. For them, it's not, they don't do it because they want to, they do it because they have to, because they know that's what they need to do to stay competitive. So I strongly encourage it. And in any way, right? Make a note on your phone, do it on your laptop. I mean, you need to type it, whatever, that's fine. But just something where you're thinking about what you learned today and you're putting it into words. Something you can look at later. It's going to help you retain it right now. And I highly recommend it for sure. I make notes of my own clinics as well. Things that I forgot to mention, things that I mentioned that I hadn't previously. It made me a better wrestler when I was coaching, absolutely. So yeah. So I want to kind of look before any questions you guys have. Again, for me, about my own wrestling experience, how I got started. Any of you that are looking to wrestle in college, about what that process looks like with the NCAA, both for the men and women, and the process is the same now that wrestling is an NCAA sport. So whatever you, if there are questions, have at it.
What SAT schools is Princeton looking for?
What?
What SAT schools is Princeton looking for?
So we actually are test optional right now. We have been since COVID. I know, it's not public knowledge yet, but I know that starting next fall, they're going to be requiring test scores again. So if you're a senior right now, you're good. If you're going to be a junior or below, they're looking at test scores. Because they haven't been accepted, they haven't talked about what their minimum SAT score is yet. It'll probably be pretty significant. But what I've learned my time being there, as much as your test scores are important, they're looking at the total package. They actually turn away 1/3 of perfect SAT scores in favor of people that don't, because they want someone that's well-rounded, right? They want someone that has good test scores, but is also challenging themselves in school. They want to see a lot of AP and honors courses. Not that you'd be getting like 99s in all of them, but they want you to see that you want to challenge yourself. And they also want to see that you're well-rounded in your social life as well. The fact that all of you guys here play a sport, huge, right? They love athletes. offer some kind of service club, get involved. Or if there's somebody in the community that does community service, or volunteering in a food bank, things like that, they love that stuff. So test scores are important. It's not the most important thing. Showing that you're motivated in school, right? Taking those AP and honors courses, and then playing a sport and getting involved in some kind of other activity that isn't just a sport. Again, service community is a big one, but like if it's theater, if my high school had a drag racing club, I don't know why. Again, we had 7,000 kids, it was huge. We had a puppetry club. Maybe you're into photography, some kind of art, but that's what it was, a perfect package. Again, 1/3 of perfect SAT and ACT scores get turned down because all these kids were doing is studying all day. They had no other extracurricular activities. So it's important, but don't lose sleep over it. The best thing I can recommend is taking it early. What grade are you in right now?
I'm junior.
You're
I'm
junior.
taking it like in a week. So.
Perfect, yeah. So take it early, and then take it over as many times as you need to, right? They're gonna take that best score, even, again, for every reason your score goes down, it doesn't matter. They'll take that best score. So by taking it early, which is good, you're already ahead of it, that gives you the opportunity to retake it, learn what areas that you may have struggled in more, take a class, whatever to get that score up. But again, like, don't just laser focus on that. Make sure that every part of your high school experience is shown on your resume. Well, yeah.
When did you start wrestling?
I started wrestling at the end of my 8th grade year, so I was 14.
Who inspired you to start wrestling?
So I was a huge pro wrestling fan when I was a kid. So like WWE stuff. So in my day it was like The Undertaker and Kane. John Cena had just started, and I watched it every single week. So when they started that wrestling club in my middle school, I was like, Mom, I want to wrestle. And she's like, that's not The Undertaker. Like, it's not the same thing. I'm like, I know, but like I think that I could give it a shot. So I got started, and then that was 2007. That following year was 2008, was the Olympic year, and I remember watching Randy Miller win a bronze medal at the Olympics. And that was the first time I'd see a female wrestling on a big stage like that. Like, not just at like, a national tournament or something. Like, that was the first time I saw women's wrestling like at a high level, and seeing an American win a medal at the Olympic Games. And as they would have, Randy ended up being my teammate and actually beat me in the semifinals of Olympic trials in 2016. So, what's that Drake quote, like, seeing your rivals become your idols become your rivals or whatever? Yeah. She still beat me. There was no like cool underdog story. But
Train until your heroes become your rivals,
yeah,
right?
There you go. That was the one. I ended up training with her for a long time, but she was the first female that I ever saw winning for the United States. So I think she was my first real wrestler that I looked up to. Let's run over here a second ago. Yeah.
What are some not common but like general girls wrestling colleges?
College. So, had you asked me that question 5 years ago, it would have been a very different answer. When I entered college in 2011, I had maybe 12 options to choose from across the country. Right now, we have 121 colleges that offer women's wrestling across the country. So, really, whatever you want to study, whatever you want to do, there's an option for you. There's a million. Like, it's almost overwhelming. It's my job to keep track of them, and I struggle because we're adding so many so quickly. So I think first and foremost, your academics, right? If your wrestling career ends at your sophomore year, God forbid you have some kind of career-ending injury, you gotta be able to fall back on academics. So even when I was coaching, I'd be like, hopefully King is the best fit for you, hopefully Princeton is the right fit for you. But at the end of the day, you have to make sure the academics make sense, because that's what is gonna propel you the rest of your life. I mean, I would love to have wrestled until I was 80 years old, but I didn't even make it to 29. So it just is what it is. So being able to filter out schools based on your area of study, if you know, if you don't, that kind of opens things up for you. That's most important. And then looking at a school to be best fit, right? Finding a coach that's going to vibe with you and what you need for your training. Finding a team that's conducive to you succeeding athletically and academically, right? You have to your support group when you're away from home. All those things are first and foremost, and then equal competitiveness. The top schools right now, King University, where I was coaching, McKendree is really good. Iowa is going to be really good, of course. North Central in Illinois is a D3 school that's really on the rise. That they'll be a top 3 team this year. Menlo out in California, they're an NAIA school, but they're always really competitive. Lights down in Georgia. I mean, there's options everywhere. But I always say academics first, and then fit. Again, like where you're going to be able to start your career, and then where's your support system going to be. And from there you can figure out like where you're the best wrestler. But those are your priorities always. Yeah.
How long have you been wrestling for?
I've been wrestling for almost 16 years. It'll be 16 years in April. April? Yeah. It's a long time. Anything else? Yeah.
Favorite wrestling trip?
Favorite wrestling?
Favorite place to wrestle in the world?
Oh man. From a competition standpoint, probably the World Cup in Japan, like the Team versus Team World Championships.
You went to Japan?
Well, Japan, yeah. It was right outside of Tokyo. In wrestling, especially at that level, you don't really get to compete as a team anymore. It's very individualized. And that's the one time a year where we truly get to compete as Team USA in a dual meet format. So I got selected for that team in 2018. And that was pretty special. Probably the coolest place I've ever been was Thailand. The Junior World Championships were there in 2012. That was pretty cool. And then I went to the Olympics in 2016. I was an alternate training partner for Adeline Gray. So I wasn't competing necessarily, but I guess that was a wrestling trip. That experience was incredible. That was from a wrestling standpoint, but to be at the pinnacle of sports and to see it that close up was so special, for sure. Anything else?
I got a couple things now.
Yeah.
So give us a highlight of your competitive career.
Again, I think that World Cup was a big one for me.
Yeah.
Again, you don't qualify for that event. You have to be selected by the U.S. national team staff. So you have to be having a really good year to even go, and I got named to that team. And then I competed really well. I had a couple of really significant wins. It wasn't the biggest wins of my career. And again, I think it was because of that team environment. I always loved dual meets in college because I liked having that team support. And you don't get that very often at the senior level. It's all individual competition at that point, so that was pretty cool. Winning my first US Open in 2018 was pretty awesome. I wrestled my first US Open when I was a senior in high school, and I didn't place. And I remember thinking, seeing what are the best people in the country compete. Again, like the Dates and the Burrows and the Stevers and the David Taylor and Jay Coxes, and like I'm gonna win that tournament. Like I don't know when it's gonna happen, but like I'm going to win that tournament. And in 2018, I think it was 25, and I won that tournament for the first time. That was pretty cool. To set a goal that early in my career and to be so steadfast in it, and to have it happen was pretty special for me. I was really proud of myself. I don't feel like I know people were proud of me during my career, but I don't think I was ever not ever, but I was very rarely proud of myself. I always was searching for the next big thing. But that was such a monumental thing. I mean, the US Open is a big deal. The pinnacle of competition in the United States. That was pretty awesome for me. I think another highlight was coaching my first national championship team. I won 2 team titles and 2 individual titles in college. But again, they felt very individualized. Like I had a lot of self-pride, but when you're coaching, it's a lot more selfless. When you see a full team come together and have 20 athletes that you worked with, right? It's not just about you. It's seeing these girls' goals and their hard work come to fruition was really cool. I was just happy to play a really small part in that. And that was a pretty big accomplishment for me as well.
How about what's the biggest piece of advice you would give to a high school wrestler, knowing what you know now?
And I think big one is having fun, and 2 is taking care of your body. I think those 2 go hand in hand. There's still that kind of old school wrestler mentality, like it's always a grind, right? You're always grinding, you're always putting on horse blinders and pushing through things. And there is some of that to an extent, right? I mean, you have to be tough. The sport is gritty, it's difficult, and you have to kind of put yourself in some deep water sometimes on certain days. But I think often I got lost in that grind and started putting my body on the back burner. And I think that's ultimately why my career ended maybe a little bit sooner than it should have. At 29 is pretty old for senior level wrestling, but you see people going into their 30s. And I think mentally I wasn't fully done, but physically I was. I couldn't train the way I wanted to anymore in order to be as competitive as I wanted to be. And it's because I started realizing the importance of recovery and listening to my body way too late. I was already in my mid-20s, and that was way too late. I should have started in high school. And I'm not saying if you're a little bit sore, pull yourself out of practice that day, but if you're hurt, you're injured, get out of that wrestler mentality of I just need to push through. This is what I'm supposed to do, because I'm tough. Taking one day off because you really think something's wrong is gonna kill you. I mean, go to the doctor, see why your friends call you because they know you're busy. Someone whose wrestling career ended way too early, actually. He was a 2-time national qualifier in Division II, NCAA Division II, and didn't get to wrestle his senior year because he didn't take care of an injury he had at the end of his junior year. He hurt his ankle, kept pushing through it. His senior year started practice, and he actually tore completely through all the ankles in his tendons, or all the tendons in his ankles, and it kept him out his senior year. He probably would have been at the podium that year. So that's really kind of funny that he was calling me right in that moment. He's another example of that. Really talented, but
Basketball stuff with this.
Yeah, for sure. His ears were burning, but I think that's a big one. Again, you're sore, push through, right? But understand the difference between hurt, injured, or sore and injured is very different. If you're injured, take a day, right? No one's gonna beat you up for a state title because you took one day. If wrestler, you want to wrestle in college, you want to wrestle beyond, listen to your body. And the other thing that happens when you start doing that, when you get in that mentality, that horse blinder mindset of like, this is the only thing that matters right now, you stop having fun. And a lot of times that's where people burn out. They get to college and they don't love it anymore. They're doing it because they feel like they should, or because they feel like that's what they're supposed to do, and not because they really love the sport. And a lot of times they don't make it through 4 years of college wrestling. A lot of times they don't make it through 4 years of high school wrestling because they forgot why they started in the first place. So I think just like setting goals for yourself every day. Like why are you coming to practice? Like every day, like what is your purpose? Is it to get better at wrestling? Is it to cut weight, which is a horrible mentality? You know what I mean? Why? Yeah, you're shaking your head like, no, I'm not cutting weight. Have fun and set a goal for your wrestling, but set a goal for your purpose as well. What do you want to get out of this day? And what's your end goal, right? Winning isn't the only time that wrestling should be fun. You should enjoy your training as well. I think that's where that play wrestling thing comes in, and right, find new ways to score, find new ways to make the sport interesting is so important. And I touched on it briefly. It's like, forget about cutting weight. If you're walking around at 133 and you want to wrestle 132, okay. But these insane 15, 20 pound weight cuts are crazy to me. If you're cutting that much weight, you're spending your practice trying to make weight and not spending time trying to get better at wrestling. And that's counterintuitive. So weight management is one thing, right? You know, I walked around beginning of the season about 10 pounds heavier than where I wrestled, but I spent the first 6 weeks gradually getting my weight down through proper nutrition, dieting. I was working with nutritionists in college at the senior level. So when the time came in college, I was maybe cutting 1 or 2 pounds a week consistently, and I wasn't yo-yoing back up. I cut that 1 or 2 pounds, like, you know, an hour or two before weigh-ins, and that was it. You know, I don't think you get that much competitive advantage. I think it leads to injuries, and I think it leads to you ultimately suffering the fun out of the sport. So if you want to go down a weight, do it the right way. You know, get your nutrition right, get your diet on point. But these crazy water cuts are just insane, and I personally think they're not productive, I guess. Yeah.
Touch on nutrition. What does Princeton do for their wrestlers when it comes to nutrition and when it comes to academics as well? How does it help the wrestlers?
So they have a nutritionist on site that they don't require the wrestlers to work with them. A lot of the guys are pretty good about it. But if the kids, especially the freshmen, need some help with it, they line up with the nutritionist. They talk about what they're weighing in right now, what they want to wrestle at come season time, what their descent plan is going to look like, and planning out all their meals, right? How much protein should they be eating? How many vegetables? How many carbs? They really break it down and make it easy for them. So it's kind of like a plug and play. Like this is what you're eating breakfast, lunch, and dinner. These are your options. You can do 4 ounces of protein. You can do chicken, shrimp, whatever. And they monitor every week. So they check in with their weight every Monday morning after the weekend, and then Friday after practice. So they know how much they're losing, what their week looks like typically with training versus on the weekend when they're they're recovering, they're not as active. But they have all those resources there for them. As much as they want to use them, they're available and free. And from an academic standpoint, they have what's called the Raw Center. They have tutoring for all classes or any subject matter, and then also 24/7 online resource center as well. So like writing lab, if you want to see your paper for corrections, they have that available. If you need, you're taking some crazy level calculus class, they have math tutors available.
Last question for me. What advice would you give a parent with an elementary school wrestler?
I think, again, having fun, right? Competition means nothing. There's not a single college coach out there that cares about what you did at the 9U state championships or the 11U state championships, or probably even like the state championships at all until you're a junior in high school. They're just not looking. I mean, making sure they're having fun so they get to that point. If they get pushed so hard so early on that they hate it by the time they're in middle school, those things aren't going to pan out anyway. So I think fun and the fact that they're enjoying training is most important. They don't need to be in here 5 days a week when they're 9. They're still developing skills. They're learning how to do a forward roll, learning how to do a cartwheel. They're learning how to take a shot and stay in a stance. So competition is cool if that's their desire, but having fun training I think is most important, probably until middle school. At that point, if you want to start traveling, you want to start competing regionally and nationally, if they're enjoying it and they like doing it, that's when you can kind of start focusing in. But I think first and foremost, elementary school, like we're talking about, having fun training. Not even having fun competing, but having fun training, and encouraging them, making practice seem exciting for them is probably paramount in my experience.
Any of you guys have any more questions? All right, thank you very much. It's been an honor having you.
Again, I always love coming here. Again, from a selfish standpoint, seeing the girls program grow, but the whole team is great. You guys are really respectful. You guys pick things up quickly, you listen well, and I hope you guys have a great season. You're off to a good start. Just by being here today on a Sunday says a lot about your commitment. So I applaud you guys, and have a good rest of your weekend.
Thank you.
Thank you.